get to the cake. I'm on a mission for maze, no matter how long it's gonna take. I could just see it already. Give me that new Benz or the Wraith. Watching my own back.
All right, what's going on, everybody? First and foremost, for those of you who are tuning in, I appreciate you guys watching. If you're a returning viewer or subscriber, I appreciate you guys always rocking out with me. You guys know me already, of course, your host, Keith of Between the Lines podcast. Please go back and like, comment, subscribe on all of the previous episodes. You can catch us on any platform, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And today, we have a very, very, dope guest. This is literally, I would say a dream come true, but it's a huge opportunity for me to finally be able to have a conversation with somebody that I inspire, to duplicate when it comes to the business of journalism, the art of journalism. Huge fan of your work, Ashley, and of course I'm gonna dive in and give you, a proper introduction. Those of you may know her from her work with, I Am Athlete, Sirius XM and things of that sort, working with Brandon Marshall and, all of those dope things. But now she's working with CBS, which she has her own show, Beyond the Arc. You also just announced the podcast with your fellow co-host, We Need to Talk Now, in which you guys are going to be diving into, sports and things of that sort. So, Ashley, again, I appreciate you taking time out to hop on. From a guy that you don't know, you just saying yes to giving me an opportunity. Thank you so much, and I appreciate that. But first
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. First question I want to just first thing I want to just say is, how's your 2024 going so far? Before we even dive into the convo, how's your 2024 going so far? I know you've been doing a lot of new things. You dropped the post in on December the 29th, which is actually my birthday, about you moving on and accepting a job with CBS, which is kind of dope to see you obviously matriculate and move on to doing bigger and better things. So how's 2024 going for you so far? How's everything been playing out? Just kind of let us know where you are right now.
It's good. Well, December 29th, fellow Capricorn. I'm January 13th, so that's what's up.
Awesome.
It's good. It's hectic. I obviously announced that I was leaving I Am Athlete at the end of December, and then announced CBS the day or 2 days before my birthday. I actually was doing it on the way to Mexico, where I was having my birthday trip. So it's been hitting the ground running since then. It's been very hectic, but I'm blessed. These are the moments that you pray for and you hope for, and then when they finally happen, you try to remember that in the midst of all the chaos, if you will.
Yes, that's awesome. And I kind of just want to start this, since we mentioned, just your time with I Am Athlete, and now with you being with CBS. I know before accepting the job with CBS, of course, you've been with I Am Athlete, you've worked with Brandon Marshall and the crew. And I think it's only fair to ask, since him splitting with, Fred and, all of the other co-hosts that he had on I Am Athlete, there's just been so many misunderstandings when it comes to, just the great things that Brandon Marshall might have possibly been doing, and just I Am Athlete with his rebranding. What was it like working with Brandon Marshall and the I Am Athlete crew? What did that opportunity do for you? More specifically, I can only imagine that it's putting you in so many different positions, just giving you a voice, giving you a platform. So what was it like kind of working with him and his crew, and taking that experience and now, pivoting over to CBS, in which you're going to be doing so much more because of what they've been able to see you do with them?
It was a great opportunity because it allowed me to really, dive into more of the analytical side of things. I think, coming from Sports Illustrated, everybody already knew that I could interview and I can do that, but I don't think people really understood the fact that I really understand the game of basketball and football. And I really watch and I observe, and I'm a student of both games. And being with I Am Athlete kind of gave me the opportunity to go ahead and put that hat on and have opinions and, go to battle with the guys and have debates and hold my own. And I think that it put me in a new light and showed that I'm not just, a one-trick pony. There's not just one lane that I can kind of exist in. I can do a lot of different things. And that year with I Am Athlete and Sirius XM really showcased that she can interview, but she could also host, and she could also, dive into the analytics and things like that. And ultimately, that's what I'm doing now at CBS. So it was a great kind of launching pad for that.
Awesome. And I think it's important to note that you were like the first full-time, Black female or Black woman that I Am Athlete has ever really had on that panel. And you talk a lot about just kind of, laying the foundation for women to follow you, and just kind of break barriers. what did that mean? What did that mean to you? Just knowing that you were the first full time, Black female on that platform, and just kind of having that, hold on to.
It was great. It was an honor, at Sports Illustrated. I was the first Black woman to ever have that position, being head of the video vertical. So, I always say it's great to be the first, but it's also more important for you to not be the last. And I think that's
Hmm.
kind of how I approach my career. That,
Hmm.
I've been very blessed and fortunate to kind of break down a lot of barriers. And, obviously that helps me in the development of my career and where I want to be and how I want to continue to grow. But I also look at that as that I hope from every place that I've ever made my mark, that it makes it a little bit easier for the next, young Black girl or, woman of color to kind of come through and say, look, you guys have had this before. It works. Like, I'm here. Like, this is what I can do. And I think the more that, barriers are broken down by myself and other women in the industry right now, I think ultimately it's going to go ahead and make it easier for the next generation of journalists to go ahead and make their mark and maybe not have to work as hard to get their foot in the door as we did and the people before us and the people before them had to do. I think it's the responsibility of all of us to kind of, while we're here, know that we're not going to do this forever. And if you do, you're very, very fortunate, but most of
Hmm.
us don't do this forever. And I think that it's not only about growing your brand and pursuing your dreams and your aspirations, but also making it easier for the women that are going to come after you.
Yes. And I kind of want to backtrack real quick, because for some, they may not know how you actually got here, right? Just
Hmm.
kind of your upbringing and, what made you want to do what it is that you do. You graduated from Florida Atlantic in 2015, I believe. And,
Hmm.
but prior to that, your father played a huge role in just like, you falling in love with sports,
Yeah.
right? But before that, you also had a knack for TV, right? You thought you wanted to be an artist. You
Yeah.
was, you played a background actor,
Yeah.
for what's his name? What's the what the
Robin
guy that
Williams.
Robin
Yeah.
Williams? Yes, he was a
Mhm.
background actor in one of his movies. But how did you go from wanting to be on TV to again journalism and just knowing that that's what you wanted to do? Like what was the switch?
So I was always like a very shy kid. I've gotten a little bit more extroverted as I've gotten older and kind of just more confident in myself. But for most of my life, I've always been very like introverted and I kind of stick to the people that I know. And there was
Hmm.
always just a switch whenever I was on a stage or in front of a camera. I did like drama club and things like that. And it was just like a completely alternate version of my personality. And I think that because I felt like I could just be this more confident version of myself and really just, let loose and just be different than how I was in my everyday life, I really was just drawn to that. But also, as an kid who's pursuing acting, it comes with a lot of rejection. Like it's very rare that like
Yeah.
you go on an audition, you land a movie
Right.
and then you're a movie star. And I think, I was being pulled out of school to do auditions and I think it was a combination of just kind of wanting to be a kid, but also I don't think that I was, mature enough to deal with the rejection that comes
Hmm.
with that industry. But I also didn't want to lose the feeling of being in front of the camera. So as I got older, and I really started like taking an interest in sports, that's kind of the merging of both worlds. And I think that now, like I said, that I'm more confident in who I am and what I'm able to bring to the table as just an individual. Obviously, going back into film and commercials are still something that I very much want to do. And I feel like I'm more, primed to do that now than I was when I was a kid. So it was just the
Yes.
merging of both worlds.
Awesome. And like what was that what role did your dad play though in that
Mhm.
process? If you can just elaborate on that relationship because I think it's imperative,
Yeah.
especially as a woman, to have that guidance and that mentorship from a parent, right? So especially a dad and daughter's relationship. So how pivotal was that relationship with your dad? And just kind of having somebody to really rely on and help you get to where it is that you want to get to and having that support.
Yeah, my dad is my buddy. He's my pal. The infamous video or the famous video rather of, Kobe and Gigi on the sidelines at a basketball
Yeah.
game and Kobe's like telling her like this is what's going on and Gigi's nodding her head and like listening and absorbing what he's saying.
Hmm.
That just spoke to me because that was me and my dad and it still is to this day. When I was probably around 13, I was entering high school or finishing my last year of middle school, is when I really started to take an interest in sports and my dad would sit me on the couch and we would watch it, but we wouldn't just watch it. He would actually like test me on it and he would pause things and say, this is a slant. This is, man to man. this is this, this
That's
is
right.
that. I mean, whatever it is, he would teach it to me so that it wasn't that I was just watching it as a fan. I was actually absorbing what I was, consuming. So as I got older and my interest started to grow more and more in the industry and in sports, I used him as my teacher, and then I used him as my first debate partner. Because my dad, one thing is like, if you're wrong, he's gonna let you know that you're wrong. And we
Yeah.
would have battles, but it was those battles that would, ultimately be just the thing that kind of primes me to be in the position that I'm in, to not only know what I'm talking about, but to be confident in what I'm talking about and being able to vocalize that. So he has had a huge influence on
Yeah.
my career and why I've been so successful in it so far.
Yeah. And I kind of want to dive into like just the media now a little bit. You have what's called like the new media, and you just have regular
Yeah.
media where, there's just so much more outlets now for people to express themselves and be them. Whereas you don't necessarily need, a network, right? You probably don't even need, like, you can just get a podcast and
Mhm.
just start doing your own thing, as you see a lot of athletes starting to transition over to. But for you specifically, I wanted to ask, like, as a Black woman in media, what are some of the challenges that you faced, in your time in media, especially in your current position, and how do you navigate, or how do you navigate through those challenges?
I think that for me, I love the space that media is in right now, and the turn took probably around the pandemic. I feel like is when that turn started to happen, the shift started to happen, but it hasn't always been the case. And when I was coming out of college, I was very much coming into a world where there was a specific blueprint on how to be successful. There was a specific way that looked, there was a specific way that sounded, there was a specific way a woman in the industry acted, dressed, you name it. There was a blueprint. And if you went outside that, you were almost made to feel like you wouldn't be successful. And I had a very hard time navigating that because I'm somebody who's a very authentic person. And if it's not who I am, I have a very hard time kind of portraying it to be that way. So for a very long time before that shift happened around 2020, there were a lot of times where I just thought maybe this isn't for me because I'm not going to go ahead and be what has previously existed. It's just not who I am. One of the things that I love when people come up to me and say, "You're so relatable. Like how you talk about sports is how I talk about it with my friends. And like the jokes you made, that's how I've always wanted to be and exist in my career. But for a very long time, that wasn't acceptable. And,
Yeah.
hoop earrings and, red lipstick or, clothing that maybe wasn't the most traditional, a little bit more fashion forward and, making jokes and being more conversational and you name it, none of that was kind of what the blueprint was. And it wasn't until that shift happened that people started to be more accepting of it. So I really don't think that my career really took off
Mhm.
until probably around 2020, 2021, when I got to Sports Illustrated. And now that authenticity is now something that people want. They don't want the old way of doing things. They want a new way of doing things. So it's been a great ride these past few years because of the shift that has happened in media for sure.
Right. Awesome. You've had an interview, I believe a couple years ago, with
Yeah.
Voyage, in which you said you referenced a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and it said, "Nothing in the world is worth having, or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty." And I think that's a quote that I would love to live by as well.
Mhm.
So that leads me to ask, you're kind of talking about struggle building character, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, very imperative, especially in the space that, we're in or you're in. And it's so competitive. Can you share like a personal or a professional struggle that has significantly shaped you to become the Ashley that you are today, right? That you can kind
Yeah.
of talk about.
When I was working in radio, I was only working there part-time, and I still very much had to work a quote unquote real job in the real world. I was working at an optical, and I was running from that optical. I would probably open the store. So it was like 9 to 1. And I would run from
You,
that optical, get in my
I didn't mean,
car,
I didn't
and
mean to cut you off.
drive. Mhm.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were working there for free, right? Weren't you working there for free or
No,
something
no,
like
no.
that?
So I
Is
was
that
getting
that?
paid at the radio station.
Oh, okay.
I
Oh,
was
okay.
getting paid at the radio station, but it was part-time. So I wasn't a full-time
Got you. I just
employee. I
wasn't
didn't
got
have
it.
benefits. I was a full-time employee at the optical, but I had an amazing manager, Cecia, who was just very
Got
supportive
it.
of me trying to pursue my dream. So she said, "Hey, as long as you meet the hours throughout the week, that's
Mhm.
required for you to remain a full-time employee, I can go ahead and like, figure out your schedule, how you can go ahead and run back and forth to the radio station. So during the week,
Yes.
I was working probably 6 hours in the optical, getting in my
Mhm.
car, driving to the radio station to do about a 3 to 7, sometimes 8 shift, and then doing it again the next day. And I did that for probably about a year, a little over a
Mm.
year. And it was just that hustle and that grind of like working 2 jobs. And it's not, at all what I thought my life was going to be like after graduating college. I thought after college, I was going to have, you name the network, they were going to be there waiting for me with a job application, say, we've been waiting
Yes.
for you. It didn't happen. I had to work a lot of like really weird jobs in the industry. Sometimes I got paid, sometimes I didn't get paid. It was a lot of my time just to get my foot in the door. And then there was a moment in time where nothing was happening and I had to go and get a real job in retail.
Yeah.
And then once radio came along, I still had to balance it because it wasn't enough. And I feel like that was the beginning of me building my character and showing myself just how much do you actually want it.
Yeah, I love that. And I kind of just wanted to go back and correct that. I think you were working at Sports Illustrated for a moment in time for it was something that you were doing where you weren't
Yeah,
getting paid.
so
I think it was Sports
that's
Illustrated, was it right?
when I started at Sports Illustrated for the first month. I said
Got it.
I had
Okay.
met a
There you go.
producer on Clubhouse. This is when Clubhouse was popping.
Oh my God,
And
Clubhouse. Right.
I said to him, I reached out to him on the side. I said, hey, like, I would love to just do some videos with you guys. You don't have
Got
to
it.
pay me. I just want the platform. I did that for about a month. Everybody loved me. From there, I became a contractor. I wasn't even a full-time employee, but I was like, I'm going to turn this into a job one way or another. And when I launched Laces Out, I was still a contractor. I wasn't even a
Oh
full-time
man.
employee. Probably about 6, 7 months after that is when I was offered a full-time job.
How okay, and I wanted to highlight that because I think for people that listens or that's gonna watch, I think it's imperative for them to understand when you're chasing something, you have to be willing to take those sacrifices
Yeah.
in that space. Because for you, it wasn't necessarily about the compensation in terms of money. For you, it was about just getting your voice out there and again having opportunity. So can you just talk to people who are inspiring, not even just journalists, but just people who are inspiring to do anything in life, right? Why is it important to sometimes just kind of have that moment of sacrifice where you're not gaining anything momentarily, but just understanding that it's going to lead to, so much greater things. For example, you now being with CBS and doing so many new things now.
Mhm.
Why is that always important to just sometimes take those sacrifices?
Because nothing worth having, comes easy, I feel
Yeah.
like. And listen, I was very fortunate that, my parents were so supportive and, I lived at home, I wasn't paying rent. I had
Hmm.
my car paid for a while. And then when I started working at the optical, I paid for that myself. But financially, I was helped out a lot, which helped me to pursue my dreams and to pursue them for little to no pay sometimes. And I know a lot of people are not as fortunate. So, there always is going to come an option or an opportunity rather where you have to decide, is the sacrifice worth it? And it may not even be, necessarily you not getting paid at all. It may be you getting not paid what you think you deserve, or maybe you're putting in extra hours and you're working with some slackers or whatever the scenario is. There's always going to be an option or an opportunity, a fork in the road rather, that tests
Hmm.
how much you actually want it.
Mm.
And you have to decide in that moment, how much do you
I-
actually want it? And
yeah.
I think that that's what builds character, because along the journey of getting to the destination, somebody told me this once and it sat with me and I've never forgotten it. When you get to the destination, it's great. You celebrate it for a moment. Maybe you celebrate it for a week. Maybe you celebrate it for a month and then it passes. It's not like you relish in that forever. When I announced that I got
Hmm.
to CBS, we celebrated for the weekend and it was like, okay, now the work starts.
Right.
But what you remember, what builds the character is not the reward. It's what it took to get there. And
Mm.
there's always going to be multiple somethings that get in your way. But I think that it's the will to overcome them that makes,
Yes.
when you get to that destination, is what really makes it worth it. And that's your story to share once you get to that point. So I would just say, don't fear the obstacles. And
I love it.
there was a very long time that I feared the obstacles. And now looking back, one thing I wish is that I would have maybe relished in them a little bit more, because I feel like that's what ultimately built my character.
I love it. You kind of talk about, those successes and just kind of, just holding on to it. Do you ever find time to like celebrate your wins though? Like I feel like, it's especially in the space that you're in. Like I just feel like there's always something going on, right? There's
Yeah.
always the next interview. There's always the next show you got to do. You got to be on set. You got to get your like it's always just moving. So how do
Mhm.
you find time to kind of be present and just really enjoy yourself and really embrace the wins that you have? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot better with that as I got older. When I was in my early 20s, I was absolutely horrible at that. I was so, it's a Capricorn thing also. Like you're so
Yeah,
caught
facts.
up in like the next move and the next thing that like when you actually make the accomplishment, it's like, okay, I'm already like 10 steps ahead. But it's a combination of things. I have a really great circle of people around me who remind me to celebrate and celebrate me and say, "No, this is a huge accomplishment. Like we're going to celebrate this."
Yeah,
I'm very big in prayer and meditation, so like
awesome.
those moments of silence when I can really connect with God and just the universe remind me to just find gratitude even if it's in the smallest moment, the smallest part of my day. And also something that I've done is I keep a list of my accomplishments in my notes on my phone. And whenever
Mm,
I get like overwhelmed or wherever I feel like I'm not doing enough or I haven't done enough, I pull that list up with all those accomplishments that I've, done before the age of 30 or just in this past year. And I'm like, there's a lot to celebrate. Like I need you to
I bet.
relax. And it's the
I bet.
way I just kind of keep myself grounded with a combination of all of those things. So yeah, I've
I
gotten
bet.
better at celebrating the wins.
Awesome. Shout out to you for that.
Yeah.
So again, you're working in an industry where it's like, male dominant, of course,
Mhm.
it's a lot of male prominence. And I'm sure that you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there may be moments that, maybe men may try to help you or guide you, but sometimes it may be with the wrong intentions, or maybe
Mhm.
you don't get the right, just the guidance that you're looking for. Um, can you elaborate on, I don't want to say elaborate on any experiences, but can you talk about what it's like working in a male dominant space or being misguided, maybe from, you know, the wrong, with men having the wrong intention, right? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
does it ever get,
it's happened to me very early in my career, unfortunately, and I think if you speak
yeah,
to multiple women in the industry, those stories unfortunately are very similar. There are a lot of, men who use their positions of power to, their advantage, and the advantage is not always a positive one.
right.
And when you're a young girl coming through the industry just looking for guidance and just looking for help, sometimes you find yourself in situations that make you feel bad, or just make you feel uncomfortable. Luckily for me, mine have never escalated to a point where it's like, now it's a criminal thing or anything like that.
Mhm.
But there have been a lot of moments where it's just felt gross and it's felt, icky. I've been very fortunate though, as I've gone through my career to meet some incredible men in this industry who have just been beyond helpful, beyond supportive. Jalen Rose, I speak to this all the time, is one of my mentors. He's one of
Shout
my
out to Jalen, man.
bestest friends. He's family. I love Jalen. And he reached out to me just via DM and said, "Hey, look, I love what you're doing. If you ever need advice, don't feel pressured. But if you ever need advice, here's my number." And it started from there. Nate Burleson, works for CBS, and he reached out to me. I connected with him when I was at Sports Illustrated. He did the first season of Laces Out. He opened
Yeah.
his home in New Jersey to me. So yes, there are men in the industry who use their positions of power to their advantage, and it's very unfortunate. It's very disgusting. But there are so many good guys in the industry,
Of
and
course.
you'd be surprised how many of them are willing to really help you and put you on game, if you will. And I've been very fortunate to have a bunch in my corner. So it's with good comes the bad, and vice versa. So
Awesome. Well, this is a super great moment right here because I'm about to just try to get you to talk about sports for a second, right?
okay.
So we just found out that the Bronny James is declaring for the draft, but he's
Hmm.
still going to be in the portal. So can you kind of just give us like your analysis, kind of talk to us, like give us your thoughts. How do you feel about just that whole thing?
I mean, listen, Bronny is kind of covering all his bases, and you can't expect any different from LeBron's son, who's very business
Hmm.
savvy. Will he be, a top draft pick if you listen to all of, the high school analysis, the collegiate analysis? He's not quite there yet. But then again, this draft class is not really that, polarizing as draft classes have been in the previous season. So that may work in his advantage, and he probably knows that may work in his advantage. But by also remaining with one foot in the portal, it allows him to have a fall safe, basically, so that if it doesn't go that way and he doesn't go the professional route, the collegiate route is still very much an option. I think for him, USC just hasn't been the right fit. And maybe
Hmm.
he, is thinking a better program gives him a better platform. But then again, you think about the next draft, Cooper Flags most likely is going to be in it unless something happens and he changes his mind. That may be a little bit of a deeper draft class. So Bronny is kind of weighing both options, and whichever one works is the one that works. So you can't be mad at it. I'm not mad
No,
at the
you
move
can't.
whatsoever. It's a very smart move
Awesome.
on his behalf.
That's dope. That's dope. Where do you see media, just the space of media and the craft? Let's say the craft of journalism.
Hmm.
Let's just say that the craft of journalism, or just the career. Where do you see that within the next 3 to 5 years? Right? Do you think the space is going to get better? Do you think there's going to be more opportunity?
Yeah.
Where do you just see it within the next couple of years?
It's absolutely going to get more diversified. You're already starting to see that. I also feel like it's not going to just continually, the ideology that it's only going to be people who've gone to journalism school and trained journalists. You're starting to see that shift as well. You have those athlete-led podcasts. Influencers have more of a space, or more of a platform in the space now. I just think it's going to continue to get more diversified. Women of color, Black women
Yeah.
specifically, are at the forefront of so many of the biggest networks, so many of the biggest events. And I think it's going to continue that trend. I think that the people who make the decisions have seen that people want diversity, and they want to see themselves in the people that are reporting sports. And at the end of the day, look, we're not curing cancer, we're not solving the
Right.
global warming crisis. We're
Right.
not doing anything that's groundbreaking. We talk about sports for a living, and we go to
Right.
sporting events for a living, and it should be fun and should be a reflective of the people in the industry, when it
Right.
comes to the athletes themselves. And that is predominantly men of color, women of color, and that's what the industry should also reflect. And I think people are finally catching up with that. So I'm very excited. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. We got a few minutes. What do you? So, what's next for you in terms of entertainment, brand deals,
Yeah.
partnerships? Like you said, you're in the space of NBA analyzm and being a journalist, but of course, as a woman, you still want to be able to do your own things and
Hmm.
partner and kind of express yourself in a creative way. So, what can we expect from you? In that regard, or what can some of the people look forward to if you can talk about all of
Yeah.
it?
Listen, obviously, we have the We Need to Talk podcast, the Beyond the Arc podcast, my work with CBS Sports Network, all of that. But I've been very cognizant of my, existence in this industry to not just put all my eggs in one basket, which is why, I signed that Tommy Hilfiger ambassador deal, and why I've done like beauty deals with Estee Lauder and things like that. And I'm very much somebody who believes that you can be multiple things and you can exist in multiple spaces. And women specifically, I feel like it's just our God-given right to do that. Women can be so many different things and should be so many different things. And I plan on definitely this year really starting to continue, not starting to, but to continue to, in a bigger way, capitalize on all of those things. So we definitely have some
Amazing.
fashion deals coming up, and we have some beauty deals coming up, and some entertainment dabblings coming up. So definitely, you guys tune in for that. It's gonna be fun.
Awesome. It's gonna be the last question.
Hmm.
Just be as transparent as possible, I guess. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I just ask this to every guest, just because I like for people to see where everyone. I just want you to be honest and vulnerable for a second. So if you can answer on a scale of 1 to 10, obviously one being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Where are you mentally, spiritually, and business wise?
Hmm.
And why you give yourself that rating?
Mentally and spiritually, I would say I'm a 10. And that's very, that takes a lot for me to say that. Just because I'm somebody, like I said, who's always like thinking about how things can be better. But I think for the first time in my life, I'm very much content where I am and not thinking too far ahead in the future. And I think that that really is a key to happiness. Just finding joy in the present and finding joy in where you have been and where you currently are, and finding joy in what's to come, but not getting too caught up in that you can't enjoy where you are. So
Gotcha.
that's where I am mentally, spiritually. Career wise, I would say an 8, just because I'm always wanting more. I always want to do more. I'm always thinking about the next thing. And I think that's healthy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, having ambition, just having the craving for constantly putting more and more on your plate. So I would say like an 8.5, 9, just because I don't feel like that's ever perfect, because I always want more. So that's
Awesome.
where I would put it. But I'm actually I'm in a very good space in all aspects. And you know, that
Awesome.
may change in a month from now, but right now I'm relishing in it being good.
Awesome. Ashley, again, just to respect time, I appreciate you, hopping
Thank
on
you.
and, just having this conversation. Hopefully in the near future, we can, kind of reconnect, and hopefully
Yeah.
it can be in person next time and we can really chop it up. But keep being great. Keep doing what you do. Love your work. Big fan of your work, of course. And yeah, hope we get to chop it up sometime in the near
Thank
future.
you for having me.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Keep doing your thing. And then you could just click off the studio whenever you're ready.
Okay. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let me make sure you tag me and stuff so I can repost on my story whenever it goes out.
I will. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll just repost. I'll clip it up really
Okay.
quickly, and then I'll just tag you or DM you and things of that sort. And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
we could just post something. I appreciate you so much. Have a good day.
No
Enjoy
problem.
the
You
rest of
too.
your
Have a
weekend.
good weekend. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Get to the cake. I'm on a mission for maze, no matter how long it's gonna take. I could just see it already. Give me that new Benz or the Wraith.